Hey, everybody. Welcome to our podcast, Frenemies. Joined, as always, by David Swor. I am DJ Cox. Today, we have a special guest, Hank Vaughan. Hank, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's good to have you, buddy.
Thank you.
Hank is a former assistant coach of mine at Westmont High School. We go back a ways here. We got a lot of good memories together. And so Hank is on the show tonight. We're going to talk a lot about a lot of different things. We're going to get Hank's thoughts on the new manager in Chicago on the South Side. So we're looking forward to all this. It's going to be a good show. It's Tuesday night. This is the only thing you need to be watching. There's nothing else really going on in the world right now. So this is what you need to be tuning into. This is where it's at. So here we go. In our last podcast, David, we talked about games 1 through 5 of the World Series. And the Dodgers were prevailing in that series at 3-2 at that point. And a chance to wrap it up in Game 6. And what a game it was. So this game was pretty crazy. And we're going to talk about this for a little while here. So Tampa Bay drops a run in the first inning off of Gonsolin. And guess who does it? Randy Arozarena. Holy cow. Unbelievable, David. And we talked about this in the last podcast about staying away from him. And Tony Gonsolin, of all people, did not stay away from him. And he takes an outside pitch and drives it into right center field for a bomb. Right away, Tampa's up 1-0. And me and Howard were talking about Gonsolin starting this game in the first place and how big of a mistake we thought that was. He didn't last very long. Looked like a bad mistake. Hank, talk about Arozarena just for a second on your thoughts on the kid that broke the postseason record for home runs. What do you think of that guy?
Well, I mean, that was clutch. As young as he was, to be able to step up in that kind of a situation. I mean, watching my team all year, I've seen a lot of young talent, a lot of young rookies, but on the biggest stage of the year to come up like he did, that's going to go a long way down the road for him.
David, what do you think? I mean, this guy, what a stud. And they announced the finalist for Rookie of the Year, and he's not on it because he didn't really have a great regular season, but man, did he destroy it in the postseason.
DJ, I'm still, I don't know what to think about this. So I told you my kids were feeding me trivia questions earlier, and one of them really stood out to me. Who had the best debut month in MLB history? There's your trivia question.
Debut month? Let's go Pujols.
Yasiel Puig.
Wow.
Yasiel Puig. So there's a lot of comparisons to be made here. Arozarena is Cuban, as is Puig. Kind of similar builds. So do we have Mookie Betts or do we have Yasiel Puig? There's just so much to unpack there. I have to believe that if Tampa thought that he was Mookie Betts, that he would have been up earlier in the season. I mean, do you guys agree? Don't you guys think it was weird that if he was that good, that they held him back that long? And so I want to believe in Arozarena. He definitely tattooed the ball. The last month he was there, just unbelievable. But I just wonder if he's Yasiel Puig. What do you guys think?
So here's kind of what I was thinking a little bit. So one of the things that happened, if you guys missed this minor move probably, the Cubs signed Jose Martinez from Tampa. They released him, and the Cubs got him. And I was like, why are they getting rid of Jose Martinez? I was a little bit shocked by that because he had a good career with the Cardinals. And they were talking all along about Arozarena and how they needed a spot for him, so they were going to just completely boot Martinez to the curb. And Martinez is not bad at baseball. So that kind of shocked me a little bit. But when Arozarena started playing, the more and more he played, the more you understood, wow, this guy's legit. And you know what, David, that's a good point. Do we have another Puig here where he's a guy that's going to show up in spurts and kind of die out a little bit, which is what Puig does a lot? Or do we got something really special here? And I think it's really too early to tell one way or the other. But, man, what a postseason. And that's something that he can never get taken away from him. And I don't think anybody had a great postseason as he did. It was definitely up there in the top 10 all time for sure as far as postseason goes. So I was completely impressed, no doubt. It's a good point.
Yep. Yeah, and you'll see that the confidence carries over in the next year. That's really where it's going to be. He worked his way up, looked okay, And then coming through that series, it's going to be a matter of how he starts the season next year. If he can continue to do anything close to what he did the last 3 weeks, yeah, he's going to be right up there.
Very true.
Again, this begs the question, why did the Cardinals trade him? Usually when these guys are studs like this, they're studs all the way through. And you're hearing all about them. When a Rosarina got traded, I mean, there was a little bit of chatter about it, but the bigger chatter was that the Cardinals got Liberatore. I don't know if I'm going to say this right. Liberatore, I believe is how you say his last name. He was one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. And a Rosarina was just kind of a little bit of an afterthought. And so, again, it makes me wonder, as a Yankee fan, I'm hoping that he's Yasiel Puig, but he might be Mookie Betts. I mean, I don't know. He just destroyed fastballs, just destroyed them like we talked about in the last podcast. Upper 90s fastballs, he destroyed them. And that last home run was on a slider. And actually, it was a little up in the zone, but not a terrible pitch. So, I don't know. Like you said, the confidence is going to go a long way. Will these pitchers figure out how to pitch him? Maybe there's something that we're missing. So, it's definitely going to be interesting to watch. If he is Mookie Betts, man, the Rays are good for a long time.
That's a good point, and what Hank talked about a little bit too is going into next year, all the pitchers know about him now. He's not going to come in here and shock anybody anymore. So this is where you're going to get separated as a player, is if you can hang with the pitchers adjusting to you and see if this is something he can continue to roll with. We'll see what kind of a Rosarina we got, I think, next year for sure, and into the following year to see if he can contain, and keep this going. But good point, all of you guys, for sure. So Gonzalez only lasts into the second inning, goes 1 2/3, gives up 3 hits, 1 earned run, 4 Ks. Through 5 innings, this game remains 1-0. It's a really good game. Rays don't score in the 6th. This whole game, I was calling events to you, David, about what was going to happen. I figured even though Blake Snell was dominating, he was going to get pulled in the 6th somehow, or after the 6th. I didn't think he would get pulled before the 6th. But I guess he didn't pass the paper test because, of course, he didn't pass. He passed the eye test in everybody's mind, but not the paper test, apparently. So he gets pulled after an Austin Barnes single up the middle in the 6th inning. So I want to know, Hank, what were you thinking when he came out? Kevin Cash comes out and gets Blake Snell there. What were you thinking?
Well, I was having flashbacks to Renteria, but I don't understand why you pull a guy 73 pitches, 9 strikeouts, and you pull him after a single. That was crazy. I don't unless he said he didn't feel good. Even if the catcher looked at him and said, "Oh, he doesn't look real good," I might have sent the catcher into the dugout. You're in the last game of the year. Well, you're hoping for your sake it's the last game of the year, and you can't pull a guy like that. One pitch, it's still a 1-run game. It wasn't like he drilled the ball either. I mean, 1 single and you pull him. All hands on deck is all hands on deck, but you don't pull your stud before he does something stupid.
David, what do you think?
I've listened to pundits slice this and dice it every way, shape, and form on MLB Network, and I guess it just came down that was the plan all along. That's the plan that they've used all year, and they stuck with it. As a pitcher, I absolutely hated it. Probably if I was a manager, I would tend to leave guys in a little bit too long. I would have been, if I was Blake Snell, I'd have been Mike Mussina. Y'all remember when Mussina told Torrey to get back in the dugout? That's where I would have been. No way I'm coming out of that game. And so this is where the eye test should trump analytics in a manager's mind, in my opinion. There was no reason to take him out of that game. 0. And so I just don't get it. But, again, that's what the Rays have rode here on, so it's kind of hard to argue with Kevin Cash on it.
Yeah, Kevin Cash is a great manager. Don't get me wrong by any means. And winning the World Series takes a lot of luck and a lot of decisions. You're going to make a ton of decisions as a manager. There's no doubt about it. Everything you do gets nitpicked. There's no doubt. But this was a big one, guys. 73 pitches. And all the Dodgers in the dugout, when he got pulled, were like, oh, here we go. They knew it, man. And everybody kind of knew it. It was like, this is not good for the Rays.
And DJ, can I say this?
Yeah.
What really didn't make any sense about pulling him then was not necessarily that they pulled him; it's the guy that they brought in. So he's kind of been getting rocked, and you got Diego Castillo, I mean, you got all these guys, as the stable, as Kevin Cash calls them. And really, the guy that should have been the odd man out was the guy who came in. So that was kind of the head scratcher to me.
Yeah, Nick Anderson had been roughed up a lot recently, and he got roughed up in this game a little bit too, and he was shaken and he was not ready by any means. And the game changed immediately, though. Mookie Betts just absolutely stud in the playoffs, doubles, and it goes second and third. And then Anderson buries one, and Austin Barnes scores, and this game's tied just like that. It seems like, and they just kept focusing on Cash. You know how they do it. They put the camera on Cash. Like what an idiot. We're going to make this even worse on you. Corey Seager, your MVP, ground ball to first base. Mookie's base running, guys. Wow. He takes off right away. And on a drawn-in first baseman, scores head first easily. Just completely took off on contact. Makes the game 2-1. Unbelievable base running. Dave Roberts was awesome, guys, in this game. I'm just going to say it, with his pitchers especially. Victor Gonzalez got the win with 1.1 innings of pitched, 3 Ks. Then Gratterall, who's their future closer. This guy's unbelievable. Gets 2/3 of an inning, and then in comes Julio. Wow. 2 1/3, guys. 4 Ks, no earned runs, no hits. Dominated. After the 8th inning, I was calling for him to keep Julio in and not go to Jansen. Hank, what were you thinking there after the 8th when Julio had dominated? Did you think that Roberts had a shot at going to Jansen, or you think he was going to stick with him?
I don't know. You get to that point, and you want to bring in your last guy. That's one of those, you don't make the move and it goes bad for you. You're going to hear about it for the rest of your career. That one I didn't judge at all. I mean, yeah, he was dominant, but it was. Sometimes you got to go with what works, and that's that eye test that, sometimes we're going to agree with, and sometimes we're going to say it was the worst call in baseball.
David, what do you think of that?
Yep, I think Hank hit the nail on the head right there. I was probably in your camp, DJ, with Julio. How do you take him out? But in this instant, Dave Roberts looks like a genius. Where Kevin Cash looks like a goat. And you could – both those decisions, they could have went either way. And again, that was probably just the plan. And so it's hard to argue with Dave Roberts. They won, but I probably wouldn't have done that.
So in the 8th inning, something just weird happens, and this is 2020 for you, obviously. So in comes Edwin Rios to replace Justin Turner. And when I saw this, guys, I kind of was like, this isn't the normal rotation that Roberts has been using. He always throws Jock and Kike in there towards the end. Those are his 2 easy go-tos as far as, throwing AJ and Kike and those guys that kind of rotate on the bases there, throwing those guys all around. But he hasn't done this one before, so I'm like, what in the world's going on? Now, to his defense, Turner was 0 for 3 with 2 Ks, so I wasn't sure if he was just like, let's try to switch it up here, maybe throwing Edwin a bone a little bit. But obviously, come to find out, Turner's got COVID and gets taken out of the game, guys. Unbelievable. It's unreal just to think that somebody can get pulled out for being sick in a baseball game now when, guys play through stuff all the time. It's just weird. It just shows you what times we're living in right now. And then if you saw, like, they came back after commercial break and they were like, breaking news. And I thought like World War III was about to start, but they were just like, Justin Turner's got COVID. And so it was like crazy. But what a way to end 2020. Unfortunately, it had to be something like that, took away from the celebration a little bit and kind of took away from their title a little bit, which we obviously didn't want to see anything about like that or happen or whatever. But just crazy, man. But, to the Dodgers' defense, though, guys, they dominated this entire season, regular season and playoffs. They were the best team. The best 2 teams made the World Series in a crazy year. It all worked out. We expanded the playoffs. The 2 teams that, were the 1 seeds got through all that mess too. So I enjoyed the 2020 season. So I just want to give a few shout outs here real quick. Rick Honeycutt, Hank was he hung around us a lot in college. He'd come watch our pitchers, and helped us out a lot. Rick Honeycutt obviously was not their pitching coach this year, but was forever with the Dodgers. Dave Roberts mentioned him at the end of the game, how much he thought that Rick had his hand on this one. And I got to throw my two Cubs guys in here. Mark Pryor, the pitching coach, and Brant Brown, the hitting coach. All that Cubs love, man. See, he brought the Cubs love to the Dodgers, and the Dodgers ended up winning because they had two great Cub coaches. So that's why they won it, guys.
DJ, did I hear that they actually called in Honeycutt to try to fix Kenley Jensen there at the end? Is that true?
I did not hear that. That's interesting. That's news to me. I did not hear that. Is that what happened?
I believe that's correct. And I think Pryor was on board with it, but I think they got to the end there, and Jensen was struggling. I believe that's correct. I think I heard that on the radio or somewhere that they actually had Honeycutt come back in and try to fix Jensen. So again, that's a shout out to Rick Honeycutt. Those were some cool days at Temple. Seeing a major leaguer on Avondale, I wonder what he would have thought, what he was thinking when he pulled into Avondale Field. Hank, Avondale was in the ghetto, as they say, and was not even a nice little league field, if we're being honest. And that's where we got to practice in college. And so you can imagine millionaire Rick Honeycutt rolling in there to teach a bunch of guys. So anyway, shout out to him.
Yes, sir. Definitely happy for Rick and Mark and Brant and all the guys. And really cool series. So real quick, Hank, let me just pick your brain on the 2020 season as a whole. Like, what'd you think as far as, obviously the shortened season, the expanded playoffs, the rule changes, all the different things that happened this year? What's your little quick summary of how you think everything went this year?
When they said 60-game season, I wasn't sure what to expect, but not that I wanted to do it again, but I really enjoyed it. I mean, I think I watched consistently more baseball this year than I ever have, especially at the beginning when you didn't know if we'd be around in 3 days to watch anymore. But I thought they handled it really well. They did what they had to do as far as protocols and all that. The runner on second base and extra innings can go for me. It was fun, but it felt more like a novelty to me in a couple of those games. Let the game go on. 7-inning doubleheaders. I mean, I get it, especially when you're trying to do a sprint like this. I think there's no need for it if they decide to do it again. Unless they're doing a shortened, condensed season like that, I don't see any reason to do it. But overall, like I said, it was just day after day of baseball, and it was probably one of the most fun seasons in the end because I think, like I said, you were so engaged in every single minute of every single game.
David, what do you think as a whole? I mean, we're at the end here. How do you think it all went?
There were some things I really liked about the season. I'm probably going to be in the minority on this, but I like the shorter season, just to be honest with you. I don't want it to be that short. I just think 162 games, it would really mess with some records and that kind of thing, so that would be a problem I would have with it. But overall, I think it helps fans stay better engaged. I did like the 7-inning games for doubleheaders, personally. I like the DH in the National League. I did not like starting at second in the extra innings as much. I get it. It shortens the game. I'm not sure I'm in on the 3-batter minimum either. Again, I know it shortens the game, but it takes a lot of strategy out of the game, and it's going to make a lot of players irrelevant, just to be honest with you. A lot of these lefty specialists that have made their career getting lefties out, they're going to be irrelevant now. But like Hank said, it broke up the monotony of COVID. I was dying for it when it showed up. And so overall, good season. Rob Manfred got a lot of flack going into this season for this whole deal. Everybody was afraid of there being a big outbreak, and kudos to MLB. It did not happen. Had a few small outbreaks here and there, but overall, a really good season.
Yeah, I got to tip my cap to Manfred for pulling it off. I don't know if you guys saw at the end when he was hanging out awards, he was completely tanked. There's no doubt about it. It was just unbelievable.
I didn't see that.
He was completely hammered. So that was unbelievable to see. He was slurring big time. But no, he pulled it off, man. Props to him, seriously, because this is obviously the hardest thing to ever pull off, and they got through it. And you know what? Here's another interesting tidbit on this. Turner got the COVID in Game 6. Wonder what would have happened if there was a Game 7. Think about that for a second. Man, what would they have done? you never really know what they would have done. They didn't even come out with anything they possibly would have done because it was over. I think Manfred was just like, thank God it's over now,
Right.
because I would have hated to have been in his shoes trying to get Game 7 in with all that going on. And so it ended just when it needed to. And hopefully this offseason can somewhat turn back to normal. And then in March, we're calling spring training games. We're back in the ballparks. Hank, you're back to your South Side season tickets going there all the time. And hopefully that's coming soon next year, guys, because 2020 was, it was really good for what we could get out of it. But, man, I don't ever want to do that one again. So kudos to those guys for getting it done.
I agree totally.
So, Hank, we're going to transition a little bit here now. So we want to hear your baseball story a little bit here, bud. So if you want to start with high school, go into college, and then if you want to transition into coaching a little bit, we want to hear your story, bud. Show's all you, man. Go for it.
Absolutely. I was a catcher for most of my career. I didn't start playing until I was actually in 6th grade. I didn't play at all before that, and I moved down south and Southern Illinois, Olney, Illinois. Played about 3 games at second base, and about the 3rd inning of that game, bad pitch. Catcher wasn't wearing the right equipment. We'll just leave it at that. We laid on the ground for about 20 minutes. Coach looks at me and goes, "Vaughn, get the gear." No. So I ended up catching the rest of that game and never left behind the plate. Played through high school. It was East Richland High School at the time. I think they've gone to Olney High School now. It's been a few years since I've been down there. And then on to Southern Illinois University. I spent most of my time trying to decide which one was going to be lower, my batting average or my GPA, and I managed to hang on to both of them in the end. But and then after that, I taught the college level for a couple 6-8 years, I guess, and had kind of been away from everything until I got out to Westmont and met DJ and started coaching out with him. Then the highlights of my year were making sure he didn't get kicked out in the playoff games for arguing something. I always seem to draw the short straw on that. You go get him. All right. There were some good times out there. Some good coaching memories. Oh, and I guess while I was at North Central, the guy who usually called the baseball games, Wayne Randazzo, I think he's out with the Mets. Is that right? I don't remember where he ended up. Great radio voice, but he's been calling a lot of stuff. He was on ESPN radio for a while, but he would never do the spring break trips. So I got to broadcast for about 4 years for North Central on all their spring break trips as the SID going down there with them. Got to call a triple play and a grand slam in the same game.
Nice.
So that was kind of fun. But yeah, it's good. It was a good run. And now it's fun to just kind of sit back and critique everybody else, basically.
Yeah.
So you said you moved south. I got to know what the definition of south is.
Well, if you're from Chicago, I-80 is the Mason-Dixon line these days. But
Yes.
it was, it's Southern Illinois, about 5 hours south of Chicago. So south for us, not south for you.
Okay. Okay. I was just checking because, DJ loved living in the South. He loved Alabama and Tennessee. He was hooked on the band Alabama for a little while. He got really into country music, and so for our fans that didn't know that, DJ is a Southern guy at heart.
Closet country music fan, huh?
Oh yes, definitely, definitely. He loves "Song of the South" and all those great Alabama hits.
Hank knows better than that, buddy. Nice try.
Alabama's a band as well as a state, DJ, just so you know.
Okay.
Hey, really cool.
Go ahead, David.
Really cool Alabama trivia. So DJ, as a country music fan, I know you'll know this, but back when they did music videos, CMT videoed the song "Put Me In, Coach. I'm Ready to Play Today." I can't think of the name of the song. But anyway, that was videoed at our home field with Tennessee Temple ball players. And so I wish we would have been there early enough for that. But were you there about that time, DJ? That would have been like 97, if I'm not mistaken.
Nope, that was just before I got there. And I did hear about that too. I was at Ingle for sure. And TTU guys were there. And Yeah, that's pretty cool. There's been a lot of things that happened. Hank too, the movie 42, that Jackie Robinson movie that just came out, was also at our college field.
Really?
That was filmed there as well. So there's a lot of history in that ballpark, and something we're definitely proud of, no doubt. And speaking of Alabama, David, this leads me right into this. So our show tonight is always brought to you by the White Sauce, Coach Hall's White Sauce. You let me right into that one by saying Alabama. So he is from Alabama, and he knows how to make white sauce. So go to Facebook, get you some white sauce. Go to the website. What's the website, David?
I believe it's the whitesauce.org. I saw that they were running a special. I'm not sure if that's still going on, but definitely check them out. The Alabama white sauce. I Googled that one day. That's a thing. That's definitely a thing down there. I did not know that. I thought it was just a Coach Hall thing, but anyway, it goes on anything. Website will help you out, let you know what to put that on, but go check it out.
So, Hank, circling back a little bit to our coaching days together, man, that 2014 team, obviously, what a spectacular team, and you were an assistant coach for me under that team as well. Talk just for a second about how special that season was for you.
You know, it was one of those years where you never knew what was going to happen next, but you always knew they were going to find a way to get it done. You know, we had our studs on there, but you know, the off chance they're not coming through, it was always somebody different. You know, whether it was a no hitter. So I think didn't we win one of those games without a hit in the playoffs? Didn't we win that like 1-0 without a hit?
Yeah, we won 2-0 in the super sectional game to go to state. We got no hit.
Yep.
And we won 2-0.
We won 2-0.
Unbelievable. Joe Donovan, who is with the Indians organization now, he lays down a bunt on a guy that had walked to get to first, and he comes all the way around to score. Just crazy game. I didn't know until the end of the game that we got no hit, but like you said, man, just some of the guys that came through. Our number 9 hitter got the walk-off game in the regional semifinal, or we're out that quick with one of the most talented teams that the state's ever seen. And, you know, just things like that, man. And when you get into playoff baseball in high school, like everything has to go your way and everything has to roll your way. And it did for us. And, you know, there's just one game that we messed up on for sure. And other than that, man, what an unbelievable season. And, you know, 2 superstars, like you said, and then a bunch of guys that knew their role, and a lot of really good players, and a lot of fun, no doubt. So, Hank, I'm always grateful to you for all you did for me at Westmont, man, and a lot of good memories there for sure. And it was a lot of fun, my man.
I got to hold you up, DJ. Hank, now, it's part of my job to figure out funny stuff on DJ, and that way I can talk about it later. Give us your best, funniest DJ Cox coaching story.
You know, I think it was in that year we won the super sectional. That was the game. He had to go out, and he's yelling. He's starting to yell from the dugout, and that wasn't enough for him. So he starts edging his way farther out, and it was Meisner and Kittle and I stand in the dugout, and Kittle looks at me, and he looks at Meisner. He goes, "Of course, I lost." So the closer DJ gets to the umpire, I have to keep sneaking out of the dugout. And sure enough, eventually I had to go out and kind of grab him by the arm, pull him back. And he looks at me, and I thought he was, you know, all 5'2" of him. I thought he was going to drop me right there on the field. And I just kind of had to gently nudge him back and bring him back into the dugout. And he didn't talk to us for about 2 innings. And finally he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, man, thanks." That's all I got from it. He'd been watching from the parking lot by that point. I didn't remember what you were so mad about, but you were not going to let it go.
What was it, DJ? I got to hear this. Because, you know, honestly, DJ wasn't very mouthy in college at all. I mean, he was passionate, don't get me wrong, but, like, I can't see him arguing with an umpire. That's interesting.
He's mouthy, but this time, that was it. This time he just kind of kept going at him. He couldn't get it out of his system.
Most of the time, David, it's the umpire. I'm fighting for my strike zones. That's majority of the time I'm fighting for strike zones, and I can't let that go. And you know how much umpires hate that. So, actually, one of the jobs that these guys have with the assistant coaches when we're in the playoffs is, like Hank said, somebody's got to, you know, make sure that I can stay on the field, you know, because sometimes I get a little angry, and so Hank drew that stick that year, and that was one of his responsibilities was to take care of me in those situations, and he kept me in that game, thank God, because that was the greatest game in school history that we pulled that one off and went to state. So, yeah, that was a lot of fun, man, no doubt. So, very cool.
Nice.
All right, so on to a couple retirements that we have here in the MLB. So, David, I'm going to throw it to you for Alex Gordon, buddy. Why don't you talk a little bit about Kansas City Royal Alex Gordon, who just announced his retirement this year?
Alex Gordon, I think his career can best be explained by the players that he was similar to. And I read down this list, and I think it kind of defines him. So Brady Anderson, Sensu Chu, Alex Rios, those are all guys who had good careers. You would say at certain times they were stars, but never maybe superstars. But Alex Gordon was one of the best defensive left fielders in the game for the time that he was there. 7 Gold Gloves. He won a World Series in 2015 with the Royals. Was a huge part of that team. He got MVP votes in both 11 and 2014, a 3-time All-Star. Great career, maybe a little bit unsung at times, I would say. I remember, again, I'm a Yankee fan. That's obvious. We talk about it all the time. But I remember thinking one year that Brett Gardner was just a shoo-in for the Gold Glove. And 3 straight years, man. 3 straight years Alex Gordon got that Gold Glove. And he plays in Kansas City, not a lot of press there, but a great player. He ended up with 34.9 WAR, which is a great career. Obviously not anywhere near a Hall of Fame career, but he had some star years, man. Alex Gordon was a great player. I know Kansas City fans appreciate all that he did. He kind of retired early, 36 years old. Not many guys do that. He definitely could have made some money somewhere for the next 3 or 4 years probably. But DJ, he made $117 million. Pretty nice to just be a pretty average, maybe slightly above player. $117 million. But great player.
Hank, you got to see him a ton.
Yeah, I'm not sad to see him go. Great player, but I'm glad we don't have to look at him anymore. He hurt us more times than I can count.
Yeah, there's no doubt. What a career. And, one of the few guys that actually is known more for his glove than his bat. He just really was. I mean, he was a great hitter, don't get me wrong, and a big part of that 2015 World Series team. And but, man, that was really, really cool to see, his defense out left field. Holy cow. That team was really special. He was on a team. So if you get a chance, there's a Luke Hochaver, University of Tennessee. There's a podcast that he's got out talking about his faith, talking about a lot of different things that went on in Luke's career. And he talks a lot about the 2015 team. Great podcast. Alex was one of his teammates, and just a real good one. If you guys can look that one up and check that out sometime, you won't regret it, I promise. And yeah, man, that was a good career for him, no doubt. Royals fans are kind of, I think he was kind of the last guy hanging on from that World Series team, to be honest with you. There wasn't, Salvador Perez is probably the other guy that's hanging on to, and the rest of those guys are pretty much gone now. But what a career, man, no doubt. I thought, he was a really good ball player, no doubt. So,
absolutely.
Hunter Pence. So, guys, back in 2007, I kid you not, I'm sitting behind the Astros dugout, and this tall, gangly, non-baseball looking guy comes walking past the dugout, and I'm like, who is this guy? Like, what? He does not look like a baseball player at all. Like, he gets up to the plate. He's so wide. He's so skinny. His strike zone's probably 20 feet tall, 20 feet long. It's ridiculous how big his strike zone is. How you cover all that plate. Did not know it. He was looking up in the stands. He's all over the place. He's real wiry and gangly and just going nuts. What in the world?
Is there an uglier swing in baseball than Hunter Pence? No way. He's so stiff looking. Even just the way he runs. But wow, I mean, he carved out a great career, World Series champion. Man, kudos to him.
You're so right, man. I would actually see him like chop sometimes, like literally chop the ball with 2 strikes to stay alive. I'm not kidding you. This is Hunter Pence, man. The definition of the perfect swing is not Hunter Pence. The definition of the look that you should get when you're base. His socks, guys, were like up to his waist. He pulled them up so high. He just all legs, real scrawny for his height. Just, man, did not look like a ball player. But what a career, man. So some stats for him. He 4-time All-Star, 2-time World Series champ, as you mentioned, 8 years with the Giants, 5 with the Astros, 2 with the Phillies, and 1 with Texas. His 1 year with Texas, he was also an All-Star. Hunter's best season was 2011 when he split the season with the Astros and the Phillies. He batted .314 with .370 on base, 22 bombs and 97 ribbies, 84 runs scored. Pretty good year there for him. And then for his career, he had 244 homers, 942 ribbies, and batted .279. 334 on base, which is really good, obviously, 1 out of 3. 1,791 hits, really good. 891 runs scored in 14 seasons. Hunter was a great teammate, and to be honest with you guys, like, you know, as ball players, Hank and David, as what we kind of do sometimes is we think to ourselves, you know, if I was a teammate of this guy, I would really like this guy. I would really not like this guy. I'm pretty sure we would like to hang out with Hunter and be a teammate with him because he seemed like a really awesome guy once you get to know him. He's a clown in the clubhouse, has a lot of fun. I'm sure his teammates just loved having him on the team. He also, as part of the 2012 and 2014 World Series titles, in 2014 he had 21 hits in the playoffs in 17 games, 8 ribbies, and he hit .444 in the World Series. So happy retirement, Hunter. That was just a really good career. So Hank, you got anything to add on Hunter?
No, you pretty much put the nail on the head with him there. But yeah, I think his best. I mean, it wasn't his best hitting year in general, but that World Series run where he just came on at the end. You know, it was one of those we weren't sure what he was going to do when he got in there, the way the year had gone for him, and then you come out and you do that. You know, that's what a 14-year vet does. Doesn't matter what's happened. He knew it was a new season. That's what I remember about him watching that series itself.
David, you got anything to add?
Yeah, just like you said, man, great career. You know, I hadn't thought about it just now, but Alex Gordon and Hunter Pence really kind of had similar careers. You know, they were different players, but, you know, Hunter Pence had some great years, some not so great years, but like you said, great teammate. I feel the same way about Alex Gordon. Both of those guys were winners. They made the best of their abilities. Like we've talked about, Hunter Pence didn't strike you as the greatest athlete in the world, just to be honest about it, but he made some big plays in the outfield. He made the most of his abilities. So, again, those are 2 guys that I think anybody could root for if they were on your team. And like you said, congratulations on a great career.
No doubt, for sure. So now we'll transition, guys, and it seems like 2020 has been a bad year for losing MLB guys, and we lost a couple more this week. And so what we kind of try to do here is just kind of give, you know, the guys that passed away a little bit of time here and get a little chance to dive into the careers of some guys that people may not have heard of and kind of talk about them for a second. It's kind of a lot of fun. The guy that passed away here, for me, I'm going to start Tom Usich. This guy, so I looked him up, guys. He had just passed away this week at the age of 88. He was a standout baseball and football player at Michigan State. He stood 5'11", 180 pounds. He played in 1 game for the 1957 Tigers. 1 game in his major league career. That made me immediately think of Moonlight Graham and Field of Dreams. 1 game. So I went there. I looked up his at-bat. He got 1 at-bat. He came in the 6th inning as a replacement. He was a catcher. He popped it out to the shortstop. And Hank and David, and I know as much as we love baseball, what we wouldn't give to have 1 game under our name and 1 at-bat. I don't care what we did with it, but how cool is that for him to say, I played Major League Ball? You know, I don't care how long it was. I don't care if it was 1 at-bat. I got there. I made it, you know. Really cool. So the Detroit Tigers, pretty awesome. Not only, though, guys, does he make it pro in baseball, but he makes it pro in football, too.
Wow.
Unbelievable athlete he was. He plays for the Patriots from 1961 to 66. He's a QB and a punter. So he's multitasking there, too. He makes the Patriots all 1960s decade team. Must be nice to be able to play two sports professionally. Obviously a lot of people have never heard of this guy, but in 1954, in the College World Series, he was named the World Series Most Outstanding Player, and his team didn't even make the finals. So that just shows you right there how good of a series he had. He had his jersey retired by both the baseball and football teams at Michigan State. He has survived. He has 2 kids and was married to his wife for 54 years before his wife passed away. Rest in peace, Tom. What an athlete. Seemed like a really good human from everything I read, too. So pretty awesome career there. So, David, you got Jack McMahon. Go ahead and talk about Jack a little bit here.
Yeah, so just one season. He was a lefty. Most of the time in relief, a little bit of starting there. He played, broke in with the Pirates, and then later with Kansas City that same year, pitched in 75 innings. He wasn't a big strikeout guy, DJ. 20 Ks in 75 innings, 40 walks, 5.04 ERA. Kind of his claim to fame is the very next season he got traded for an MVP. He was traded to the Yankees. Make sure I'm getting that right. He was traded to the A's from the Yankees for Bobby Shantz, who was the A's MVP a couple years earlier, along with a whole bunch of other guys and a lot of guys that played. He was just kind of a throw-in on the trade. But born and died in Hot Springs, Arkansas. I'm all about a hometown guy, probably a hometown hero. Anytime you make it to the majors, you're probably still in your small town. So short career that we wish we all could have had. But rest in peace to Jack McMahon.
Yeah, both these guys, I believe, only played one season in the majors, and just like you were talking about, David, what we wouldn't give to just have that one season. It wouldn't matter how long you were in there, whether you got a cup of tea or you were in it for like these Hall of Famers that have gone down this year. All these guys mattered. All these guys have stories, and it's really fun to dive in and see these guys' stories and kind of read up on them and learn some more stuff about the history of the game, man, because really cool stuff that you kind of run into. So rest in peace to both those guys. And we will move on now to a couple different things that happened this week from a managerial standpoint. And we're going to start with the Tigers because I want to end on the conclusion with the White Sox here. But the Tigers first, guys, and I want to pick both your brains on this one as well. So the Tigers have hired A.J. Hinch as their manager. Before I even get into what I think, Hank, go for it, man. A.J. Hinch, what do you think?
You can say whatever you want about last year. It's still pretty hard to hit a ball when you know what's coming. But he served his time. He's taking a year off. Tigers need something new. He's really the best option, I think, out there. They're looking for a long-term solution. I'll get into why I think we made the call we did and not Hinch. But for them, I think it was a good call. I mean, people are gonna give him a hard time. They're always gonna look at that World Series. Maybe not quite with an asterisk, but and he's always gonna be associated with it. But he served his penance. He's back in the game, and let's see what he can do.
David, what do you think?
I think it's a no-lose situation for the Tigers. And I think it's a good opportunity for Hinch. Here's a good way to rebuild your reputation. You kind of flushed it. Just to be honest with you, I'm real skeptical of you. I think there needs to be an asterisk. And we've talked about sign stealing and all that, and the remedies for it. But it's a great opportunity for him. It's a great opportunity for the Tigers. He was the big name on the market, either him or Alex Cora. He's proven that he could take a young team and make them contenders. And so it'll be really interesting to see how he meshes. The Tigers are further away than the Astros were, but he knows how to handle a young team. And so I think it's a win-win for both of them. I think it's no lose.
So Ron Gardenhire is the guy that got replaced by AJ, and man, I wish Ron nothing but the best. He's battling a lot of health issues right now, and I think that's a big reason why he stepped away. Great manager for the Twins, and he had a little rough run with the Tigers there. They're struggling a lot right now. They don't have much of hope, but David and I talked a lot about the Tigers with some of these guys they got coming up, some of these prospects that they got coming up. Casey Mize, Spencer Torkelson, number 1 pick in the draft out of Arizona State this year. They got some studs coming up. There's no doubt about it. They've got a few other guys too that are highly thought of prospects. So the Tigers are still a little bit ways away, but they're heading in the right direction. And you know, AJ Hinch, I know this is tough for me. I think he's a great manager. I really do. I just don't understand, and we'll talk about it with the White Sox too. I don't understand how there's not different options that were out there for these two teams. Like, how are these the top guys that are out there right now? I'm not really sure where we're at in the coaching world right now. If you have to go out and get somebody, you know, Cora's another one. He's the other guy that's probably going to go back to the Red Sox, and he was involved just as much as AJ was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got two guys that were just involved in huge scandals, and you got a guy that's, you know, let's just be honest, he's on his wheels with his tennis balls, you know. He's carrying that thing around. So if these are your top managerial candidates in baseball, something's wrong, man. And I don't know what it is about the coaching world right now in baseball, but something's got to change. Some other prospects, you know, coaching guys got to come up here and step up and get jobs. And, you know, like it might be a good move for him. I'm not saying he's a terrible manager. But, you know, we'll see how it all comes out for the Tigers. You know, they got a lot of young prospects. So is AJ the right guy? I guess we'll find out. I'm not really a fan of the signing, just being honest. But I guess we'll find out. David, what do you think?
I agree with you a little bit regarding AJ Hinch and Cora. Who else would you get other than 2 World Series winning young managers? Now, the La Russa thing, we can argue about that a little bit, but I'm just going through my mind and thinking, well, if I had a young team, who else would I want to hand that to but young guys who've won the World Series?
Yeah, you know, I get it. I really do. And these guys they've done it. They've proven it. But man, I don't get that there's not, you know, I mean, AJ Hinch flat out cheated to win the World Series. Let's just be honest. You know, he really did. And, you know, does that give you credibility? I mean, no. So I don't know. It's tough, you know, because he did win it, but it's one of those tough things, man. I'm really having a hard time trying to wrap my head around how, you know, it's like the whole John Calipari thing with college basketball is everywhere John Calipari goes, UMass, you know, he gets them put on probation. He goes to a different college, gets them put on probation, but he brings everybody in, right? Like he recruits everybody and he wins national titles. So nobody really cares. They kind of sweep it under the rug and they go on from there. And he's a great coach, no doubt. Kind of like what they're doing with AJ here is, yeah, he did this. Let's sweep it under the rug. Let's move on. He's a great coach.
Let me ask you this, Jay. The Cubs, you know, they broke their big World Series drought. Would you have traded that for what we just talked about? So if it was, hey, we're going to win a World Series, but it's tainted, or we're not going to win one at all, which one would you take?
Yeah, you're right. I'd take it.
That's why these guys have jobs. That's why Calipari keeps finding them, because he gets them there. And I can tell you, I'm a West Virginia basketball fan. If somebody said, hey, you can have Calipari, and I guarantee you in 2 years you'll win a championship, and in year 3 you'll be on probation, sign me up. I'm in.
I know, man. That's what makes it it does make it tough. I understand that. I get that. It's like the whole steroid thing. You know, if I'm gonna take steroids and make $5 million, or if I'm not gonna take steroids and not make the majors and not make that money, what am I gonna do? You know, I get it. Trust me, I do. But I just, man, this whole recycling of guys like this is just kind of weird. And I don't know, man. There's got to be something better to that than what we're doing right now. So transitioning now, let's go to the White Sox. So Hank, this is where you come in big time. And David, you come in as well, because I'm not going to say too much about this.
Can't do it.
The White Sox have hired Tony La Russa as their manager. So Hank, talk a little bit first about what was your guy that you wanted them to become the manager?
Well,
Just talk a little bit about that process.
I can sum this up why they did it in 2 words. It's Justin Jerschley. You got the kid down there who's been managing for 4 years with Birmingham. He's Birmingham now. Came into Kannapolis for 2 years, won his first year there, did a second year, went to Winston-Salem, did well there, and was going to take over at Birmingham this year. LaRusse is a stopgap. He's absolutely a stopgap. They brought him in to be there for probably 2 years. I'll be surprised if he's here longer than that. Jerschley's probably going to do 1 more year in Birmingham, and then they'll probably bring him up as an assistant coach in 2022, and he'll take over for LaRusse. He's the hot kid in the program right now. He's been doing, like you said, bring up a young manager. He worked with Dunning and Cease when they were down there in South Atlantic League. 2017 Coach of the Year. You know, I don't think everybody's looking at LaRusse thinking we're going to keep him around or we're going to win all these championships with him. It's not why he's there. You know, he's got the experience. You know, I think he's bilingual. If I read that right, you know, he can talk to our guys without having to use translators. We can still relate to him a little bit. You know, as far as guys like Tim Anderson with all the energy and the bat flips and everything else, you know, he dealt with Henderson in the past. He can deal with Timmy too. So, you know, if he can relate to these players, you know, and bring a little, I guess, bit of his old school mentality in for a couple years and keep him moving forward, and then Jerschley takes over in 2 years, I think it's a good move. But yeah, if there was nobody else in the system, I wouldn't be sold on it either. But if, you know, I would imagine this is what they're trying to do. They're just trying to give this kid a couple more years of experience before he takes over.
One of the things that I couldn't find, Hank, and I was wondering if you knew this, I have no idea, like, what did they give him as far as the contract goes? I couldn't find this. I didn't hear it on the press conference. Did they give him a year? Did they give him a 2-year deal? What did he get for a deal?
I haven't seen it. I know he did an interview yesterday, but I didn't get a chance to watch it yet. But yeah, I haven't seen the terms of the deal, the contract yet, the length or anything else. So, but I would imagine it's probably a year to year. I mean,
That's interesting. I didn't hear any of that stuff. So, David, what did you think about the hiring?
I'm going to say this. If what Hank just said is the real reason that they hired Tony La Russa, I hate it. I just think this team is so close. And if that guy is the guy and he brought those guys along, do it now. Why wait? You know, if he's that good of a manager and he knows these players, and again, I'm just kind of a White Sox fan from afar, so to speak. I don't know why they would do that. I mean, I guess I see part of the philosophy in it. Again, as a White Sox fan from afar, I'd like to have seen them got Alex Cord personally. Again, he's an accomplished manager. He's young. He seems to relate well to younger players. So that's who I was kind of pulling for. La Russa was completely out in left field. The first time I read that, I thought, there's no way this is fake news. That's, you know, but there's another side of this. And we talked about it a little bit off air. You know, again, I'm a Yankee fan. And so when the Yankees went to the playoffs in '95, they went under Buck Showalter. And the very next year, or that offseason, Steinbrenner fired him. And they brought in Joe Torre. And at the time, man, I was really mad that they did that. Torre had, at that point, accomplished nothing. But similar to La Russa, an older manager, smart, and he kind of brought the calm that team needed. I didn't realize this until I read up on it a little bit today, but La Russa is a lawyer. Did you guys know that? He left being an attorney to be a baseball manager. And as a manager, it's kind of hard to argue with his success. His front office experience hasn't went so well. But it's hard to argue with his success. And so this is one of those moves. Either Reinsdorf is going to look like a genius or he's going to look like a moron, and this is going to go south real quick because some of these young players may not put up with whatever La Russa is going to bring to the table. But definitely not the move that I was looking for. I thought for sure when they fired Renteria, it was lining up for Alex Cora or A.J. Hinch, one of those young guys, for them to scoop him up. And so it was just really a shocker to me.
So, Hank, Rick Hahn, I don't think I listened to the entire press conference, and I don't think that Rick Hahn is behind this. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not on that side, obviously, but it seemed like this was a Reinsdorf move, and Rick Hahn wanted somebody else. Am I mistaken by that? I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It definitely feels like a Reinsdorf move. That's kind of the way he's done things his whole career. So it's hard to not think that. But I think Rick probably brought him other options, and he had his mind made up, and that's what he wanted to do. And Rick, will go along with it. He's not going to be happy about it, but he'll do it. It wouldn't shock me at all if it was all Reinsdorf.
So this is a team, guys. This is a manager who hasn't managed since 2011 when he walked off with the Cardinals. That worries me a little bit. Now, I know he's the third winningest manager of all time. Got a lot of respect for him. I really do with those A's teams. Just a great manager, there's no doubt about that whatsoever. But that's a long time to be out. He's not getting younger. I just don't get it. And I'm kind of with David on this too, is if you got and Hank, thanks for that information, because I didn't know they were going that route with the guy in the system. That makes more sense to me too, is if you're gonna do that, just keep Renteria for another year. He wasn't terrible, and just stick him in there as your bench coach and then have him take over for Renteria. I don't know. I'm just trying to get all this. David, what was your question? I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Well, I actually went back to Renteria, and like I said, we talked about a little bit about this off air, but maybe Hank can fill in folks who aren't connected with the White Sox as much. So Renteria had the biggest improvement of any manager in baseball this past year. Took a team that shouldn't have been anywhere close to the playoffs by most standards and took them into the playoffs. So why get rid of Renteria when they did?
From what I saw, it was a lot of the little moves. If you watch the last few weeks of the season, the way he handled the pitching staff was painful at times. You're bringing in Rodon, who hasn't pitched in a while, in a clutch situation, and again comes right in, hasn't pitched in weeks, comes in, gives up how many runs, you lose that game. It was every little pitching move he made, and you know what? It happens in baseball. You make those calls and they go wrong. But it seemed like the last 3 weeks of the season, if there was a bad idea, he did it. Even the last game 3 of the playoffs, you bring in, I think it was Dunning started that game. He pitched 2/3 of an inning, gave up a hit, and then he goes and he gets Garrett Crochet out of the bullpen. Kid throwing 101 miles an hour. Now, first off, he hasn't even had time to warm up. The game hasn't been going that long. And then you bring in your fireballer in the first inning he's averaging 100 miles an hour. The next guy that comes out, he's going to be throwing grapefruits to everybody, at 92. It was nothing he did made sense down the stretch. He would not take the parrot out of the game. Love the guy, great career, but it was like watching Adam Dunn Part 2 for the second half of the season. It was painful to watch. And he just wouldn't take him out of the lineup. He kept batting him 4, 5, 6. Moves that everybody was saying, why isn't he doing it? And he never did it. And I don't know if that was, and you're paying Edwin a lot of money. Maybe that's why they left him there. But so many little things down the stretch. And again, like we said off air, if you'd have told me we'd have been playing for the division in the last game of the season, I'd have said it was a great year. And it was a lot of fun. But there were just so many little decisions that we just couldn't, he couldn't get out of his own way.
So one of the things too is it's kind of funny because last night was announced the finalists for the 4 major awards, and the White Sox had 3 of the categories filled by somebody. And one of them is Rick Renteria, and he's already gone. And he's a finalist for Manager of the Year. And he got the boot, guys. So we don't see that very often. You really don't. And I agree with you, Hank. That third game against the A's was an absolute disaster. And Bob Melvin was a disaster in that game too. But he ended up somehow coming out of that with the win. If Melvin would have lost that game, he would have had a lot of heat on him as well. for the way he handled it. That was a crazy game, and I do ultimately believe that cost Renteria his job, unfortunately. I think Rick Renteria is a great guy. He was a Cubs manager, got booted for Madden. Now he's a White Sox manager, got booted for La Russa. He's had a tough go about it, to be honest with you, and I feel sorry for him. I really do, because he seems like a really, really great guy, and he seems like he really wants to do well for these young players. But Hank, talk a little bit about this White Sox team, because they're a young and up and coming team. So if you were the GM, what are some of the things that you would look for as far as what are they missing moving forward here to become an elite team in the game?
It was not much. You look at that pitching staff. If Giolito keeps doing what he's doing, Keuchel keeps doing what he's doing, you've got Cease and Dunning, and we'll see what Kopech brings next year. For next year, I'm looking for a lefty. I'm looking for a number 3 maybe in the rotation. You don't need to go insane spending a lot of money, but you've got to get somebody else to lock that thing down. If somebody gets hurt, if there's an injury, Kopech doesn't pan out where we want him. So you definitely need a number 3 to come in there and just kind of solidify that rotation. An older guy would be good. You could look at bullpen's not too bad. Birdie Downer South, if I remember right. Good player. I want to see a little more of him. Matt Foster, Evan Marshall. I'd like to see Crochet as a closer.
Oh, there you go.
Because again, the same thing. You bring a guy in throwing 100, 101, and he's consistent. I mean, I don't know how much you saw him pitch, but it wasn't like he was throwing a couple up there. Every fastball he was throwing was 100.
Yep.
So you can't really use much after that. So as far as the pitching staff goes, maybe one more bullpen arm, and I try and find a lefty for the middle of that rotation. I'm big on the re-signing McCann, but I don't know if McCann's going to want to come back. You got Grandal behind the plate. You got McCann. They've got Collins waiting in the wings. But what I like about McCann is, he was an all-star 2 years ago, limited playing time this year, and he was still not going to cover off the ball. You can always play, Grandal at first, give Abreu a day off, and really kind of rotate those guys around a little bit. Solves your DH problem. You let McCann DH. Obviously first is set with Abreu. Vaughn's waiting in the minors. Madrigal should be starting every day at second base, hitting second in that lineup.
I agree.
Let Anderson get on base. Let the kid who doesn't strike out hit second. And again, that was another. You go back to Renteria a little bit. I get why he had him 9. He wanted him on when Anderson hit, but I would have done it the other way around and got the kid more at bats. Moncada at third, good season, even, kind of recovering from COVID all the way down. Timmy's Timmy at short. Eloy, thank you for that, DJ, by the way. We appreciate that. That was a picture I was thinking about, is maybe bringing Quintana over because he's free. Just get him back and complete the cycle for you.
Oh.
The biggest thing I think we need to do is work with Robert. He's got Joe Creedy syndrome. Every time he's got 2 strikes and somebody throws him a slider low and away, he's going to swing at it. I don't care if it's 3 feet off the plate. He's got to start to make that adjustment that the pitchers have made to him now. If he can do that, I mean, he really is going to be the player we all think he is. Because you throw him a fastball, it's not going to land for a long time. But the last month of the season, it was hard. Everybody had him figured out. He could not lay off anything low and away with 2 strikes. For Wright, Eaton's out there, left-hander. We don't have a true left-hander in the lineup. Grandal's switch hitter, Moncada's a switch hitter, and I think that's about it, unless I'm thinking something wrong. But we need a left-hander in that out in right field. So, pick some options in there. But it's a really solid young team. You've still got people down waiting in the minors. I think it's going to be a good run for a long time.
So you'll love I looked at MLB trade rumors, free agent predictions, and I love the one for the White Sox, just to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. So here's the free agents they said that the White Sox would get. James Paxton, 1 year, $10 million.
Yep.
And, as a Yankee, when he was right, he was tough, man, very tough. And the other guy, and like I said, I love this, George Springer. They said George Springer and going to the White Sox. And I'm telling you, man, if that happened, they would be loaded. So,
no, none of that.
Yeah.
No George Springer, man. That ain't gonna happen. That can't happen, Hank. Nope.
Oh, Paxton would be good. He's striking out about 30% of the guys when he's right to take him. And yeah, we'll just pick up all those.
Nope.
What were you saying about the World Series this year? All the Cubs hanging out, helping all the kids. We'll take them.
Hey Hank, so one of the stories popped into my head just now, man. You gotta tell this real quick. So you were the lower level head coach, and one of our stud young lefties, Sam Abatacola. You know where I'm going with this.
I do.
So tell David and our viewers about the outing that Sam Abatacola had. He had a little bit of issues with his wildness at times.
You call that?
I just love this story.
Great kid, nice kid. I think I told him, I said, I don't want to see anything but a fastball, until they hit it. Well, he started with that, and those weren't over the plate, so there were a couple walks, and then I think he gets one out finally, and then he throws two fastballs, has an 0-2 count, and he throws a curveball, goes to the screen, and then he walks two more guys. And I don't remember if I let him get the second out or not. And I walked out to the mound, and I looked at him. I said, "You sure you're left-handed?" And he goes, "Huh?" I said, "Just give me the ball." Sat him down. He could not figure out why I took him out of the game. I told him before we started, I said, "Sam, you walk people, I'm taking you out. I don't care what inning it is." Now, I didn't think it'd be the first inning either. This poor kid, he just kind of had no clue. He just sat down on the bench and looked at me like, I've never been taken out that soon before. I've never watched so many guys walk around the bases in 20 minutes. Is that the one you're thinking of?
Oh, yeah. So, Hank, man, you were notorious for finding pitching for me down there. Just if Sam wasn't going to do it the first, some guy who never pitched his entire life was out there throwing and get us through this game. Maybe we'll find a diamond in the rough.
That's because you kept taking all my pictures.
Yeah.
Oh, he looked great. I'm going to take him with me tomorrow. Oh, thanks. It's just Hersher. I'll be fine.
I think that's what you did. You kept Sam down there. Hey, you need to have a bad outing so Cox doesn't take you up to the varsity.
Oh yeah.
So I could report that you stunk.
Yeah, you guys need to suck today. Coach is here. And I begged and I pleaded to have Donovan behind the plate for one game as a freshman. He just wouldn't do it. I'm like, just give me one game. I need anybody else for the rest of the season. Let me have him play one JV game.
And you know what would happen? He would get hurt in that game, and I would die.
You know what? Yeah, that'd have been my fault. Yeah.
Oh, I love that story. So yeah, man, the White Sox. So Hank, on a serious note, now I'm not trying to, I'll try to keep it civil here as a Cubs fan. Do you think that the fans are going to come back next year and actually you guys can have a good fan base or?
Well, yes, unfortunately, I'd almost rather a lot of them, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but a lot of them didn't. 06 was awful. It was all the Fairweather fans, I'd had the best seats in the house for 5 years. And then everybody said, oh, look, there's a good team. And they packed the place. And then all of a sudden, we're attacking third base coaches and you can't come down from the upper deck anymore.
Yeah.
But it's a nice environment when it's about half to 3/4 full. But I do think they'll get a lot back next year. It's going to be an exciting team. I don't know if they're going to come back and win the division next year, but it's definitely going to be fun to watch. It was fun to watch this year. It was not what we expected. Even with the run down the stretch, it was hard. But you told me that last day of the season we were playing for the championship or for the division. It'd have been a great year. So I think they'll compete like that next year. And the thing with this team is everybody can hit. There's no weak spot in that lineup. There's nobody you go, oh, thank God I can take a breath. And it's the same way when you're watching the game. So I think they're going to get a good fan base back.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with you, man. They were just an interesting team to watch, and I think that a lot of fans are going to jump on the bandwagon. To be honest with you, they got some guys that are going to be stars, and and very interesting. So I'm pulling for him. And I know as a former coach, a former White Sox assistant coach, DJ's pulling for him as well.
You can't let that go, Hank.
I'll never let it go, ever.
He's got pictures of me when I was coaching with the Bulls Sox Academy, doing all that Sox stuff, and he brings it up all the time. He shows the pictures. He won't let it go, Hank.
Perfect. Dave, I'll send you my number. Just text him on over after this.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to ask. It looks like your hat is signed. Is
Hawk? This is Hawk. Yeah, Hawk Harrelson.
Oh, okay.
So it's usually on the wall behind me, but I figured since he was wearing his Cubs hat, I'd put it on today.
Nice.
So Hawk Harrelson, David, as we talked about off air a little bit, was the general manager in the 80s that fired La Russa. Is that correct, Hank?
Yep, that's it. Yep.
Unbelievable, man. I did not know that story. So a lot of things come out when they were talking to La Russa. One of the things was, Hawk's not announcing anymore. So I don't think La Russa gets along with him very well. And I think that, he's happy to see Stoney and the other guy up there right now and not have Harrelson up there. So, Hank, what years was La Russa White Sox manager? Was that the 70s into the 80s? I can't remember the exact time.
It was into the 80s. Yeah, through the Wrigley team and early 80s.
I think he was fired in 86, if I read that right.
All right. Yeah.
Sounds about right. Yeah, he's rolling along there for a little while and had his first stint with the Sox and became good buddies with Reinsdorf. And I think that's what brought him along here to this spot that he's in now. It's going to be interesting, man. There's no doubt that this is going to be kind of interesting to see how these White Sox go next year with him as a skipper now. And, man, I just think that David's right on this. If you got a guy in the wings, he should be up with the club now as the bench coach. Hahn or Reinsdorf, if that's the guy, then he needs to get up in the major league dugout and start learning from La Russa, because who better to learn from if you're an up-and-comer than Tony La Russa? And if he's staying down and coaching on his own without La Russa, doesn't make much sense to me. Bring him on board as an assistant, let him learn and pick the brain of La Russa. Then to me, that makes more sense. You walk him into the next generation of White Sox players. He's there for years to come, and I don't know, man. Be interesting to see what direction that he takes him next year.
Yeah.
So guys, go ahead, Hank.
Oh, I was going to say, bringing Jersey up sooner than later, I think, is a good thing. And they haven't announced, anybody else on the staff really. So, that may be their plan to pull the trigger right away and bring him up. I think this is going to be his first year at Birmingham this year because he did 2 with Kannapolis and then Winston-Salem. So he didn't get that year in down there. But, it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. But I think he's the future.
Yeah.
That's a good call. He hasn't really announced any of his staff yet, so that's a good point. I think the only thing he said is he's not keeping the third base coach, and then other than that, he's got it wide open right now. So it'd be interesting to see maybe he does bring him on board. I guess we'll find out here to come. So, David, unless there's anything else you needed to add, or Hank, or anybody, then I think we're good here on this week's podcast. This has been a blast. You guys have been really good, and tune in, all of our 14 fans out there. That seems to be the number of views that we're getting here in the last few weeks. No, we love doing this every week and bringing you guys the talk of MLB. And so next week we'll get into a lot of different things. There's never an off season in baseball. We'll get into some free agency. We'll talk about a lot of different things going on in the game, whatever happens this week. We'll go over the Gold Glove Awards a little bit. We'll have another guest, I'm sure, and we'll have a lot of fun. So, Hank, thanks for joining us tonight, buddy. It's been a pleasure, man. Good to see you again.
Absolutely. Thanks.
And David, as always, buddy, good to have you, my man.
Yep. You as well, DJ. Next week.
Sounds good. And we are done. Thanks, everybody.